Happy Thursday and welcome back to the Wolff Den presented by Win Again Academy. Mark Moyer doing some great things with his networking events. They had a job fair for athletes this past week. Check out winagainacademy.com. I'm Matt Wolff, founder and CEO of Ticket Time Machine. Today we welcome Adam Boliek to the Wolff Den. Adam, welcome to the show. We don't mind having visitors. Don't worry about it. We just got people walking through, cats jumping on. I'm probably going to walk away for a second to show you something that happened here. So don't worry about any crashing the party here, right? We're welcoming to all, which is a good segue for who you are and what you do, and give our audience a quick introduction.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much, Matt. It's a real pleasure and honor to be on with you. And you know, I think we're all pretty used to this COVID work from home type restriction. So I apologize again for my daughter kind of popping in there. But yeah, my name's Adam Boliek. I'm Director of Partnerships and Activation with the 2022 USA Special Olympics USA Games, held June 5th through the 12th, 2022, here in Orlando, Florida, the city beautiful. I have a number of areas that I kind of oversee, so to speak, one of which is the development. So our partnerships, which are so integral to the games. I oversee our Fans in the Stands program, which is our spectator program, as well as all ticketing, sales service, and operations for opening ceremony of the games.
Right. So most people probably, and me included, so let's get some education here about what are the Special Olympics, why are they so special, and why is it a Special Olympics USA Games? It's still the World Games, right? But it's held in the USA. Is that correct?
So Special Olympics overall, we're overseen by the parent organization Special Olympics International. That's based in Washington, D.C., overseen by Tim Shriver of the famed Kennedy Shriver family. Special Olympics overall was founded in 1968 by Eunice Kennedy Shriver of the Kennedy family. And really it was done as a way in a place for inclusion for her sister, Rosemary. Rosemary had intellectual disabilities, and as you can imagine, at that time there was a certain stigma attached to it, right? And so she wanted to create a place that was inclusive. She wanted to create a place where she can find competition and have fun and find camaraderie and make friends, and hence the Special Olympics. Now, Special Olympics, once you break it down from Special Olympics International in Washington, there are different delegations throughout the entire globe. We here in the United States are overseen by Special Olympics North America, SONA, as we refer to them. And they oversee the 52 state programs and delegations. 52 because California is split into two. And then we also have Washington, D.C. So we also have Canada under North America and the Caribbean. Now, every 4 years, Special Olympics hosts what's called the USA Games. Okay. In the past, the USA Games has just been open to the 52 state delegations. There is also the World Games, which happens every number of years as well. The last one, I believe, was Abu Dhabi. And the next one will be, I want to say it's Los Angeles off the top of my head, but I'll have to double check that. So there's the World Games, there's the USA Games, and then each state has their regional games throughout the summer and winter. But the USA Games is the big event that we're looking forward to here in June 2022.
And when's the last time it was in Florida, Orlando?
Never been. So the last one was in 2018 in Seattle. Seattle did a phenomenal job, really taking what had been done in the past and just building upon that. And that's kind of what we hope to do, and we envision us doing, is taking what Seattle did and just building upon it.
It's got to be very much like the Olympics that we just watched, in the sense that the planning goes on forever. So once you are announced that you're doing it, you're after it. But what happens after the Special Olympics? Do you have to move on?
Yeah, so that is one of the unique terms of my employment, right? So to back up a little bit and give you a little background, I started with the organization the week we shut the country down in March of 2020. I had come over from Major League Soccer. I had worked at Orlando City Soccer Club, spent a number of years in sports, and I came over to take this opportunity to work with a woman named Amy Wise. Amy is my direct supervisor. She's the chief development and marketing officer of the games. We had the pleasure of working together at the Orlando Apollos of the Alliance of American Football. And when she had a need, an opening for somebody on the development partnership side, we had connected and got a chance to get involved with the organization. And I had never been exposed to Special Olympics in the past, right? Like I never been personally affected. So I really made it a point when I started to get to know the families and understand the size and scope of the organization and what we actually do for people on a day-to-day basis. I also took the job knowing that once the games were over, I was out of employment. But there's something slightly exciting to know, like we're a part of this event that is so special, the biggest USA Games in history. And afterwards, who knows what kind of doors and opportunities that could open. So it's exciting.
Well, why is this the biggest game in history? Is just everything gets bigger as you get older and more often and add sports and, but is there something special about these games as to why they're bigger than ever?
Yeah, I'd say it's a number of things. First and foremost, to your point, just the sheer number of athletes. So in Seattle in 2018, they had 2,800 athletes compete. We're looking to have 4,300. We have a little bit over 4,300 confirmed right now. So that's number one. When you add in all the coaches and delegation members, I mean, we're looking at a plethora of people, a sheer number of people. But in addition to that, all of the previous USA Games have been held on college campuses. So athletes stay in dorms, in college dorms. They compete in athletic facilities, which was really cool and special. But we, again, wanted to take things even bigger, badder, and better. And with Walt Disney World as our host sponsor, all of our athletes will actually be staying on Disney property at the All-Star Resort. Wow. In addition to that, they'll be competing at ESPN's Wide World of Sports, the same place the NBA had their bubble. So as you can imagine, Matt, for a basketball athlete, for example, to be able to play on the same court as LeBron James did last year during the NBA bubble, pretty special, pretty unique. And I often joke and say we're creating 4,300 Make-A-Wish moments because, a lot of times it's these folks' first time on a plane, first time coming to Florida, first time going to Disney, all that stuff. And we're providing all of that complimentary from start to finish for them. So the number of athletes, the fact that we're on Disney property, and the number of sports now, we're up to 19 Olympic-style team and individual sports. So it's growing. The size is growing as these years go on.
What's been added recently?
Let's see. So the total list of sports is track and field, basketball, bocce, bowling, cheerleading, equestrian, flag football, golf, gymnastics, open water swimming, powerlifting, soccer, softball, stand-up paddleboard, surfing, swimming, tennis, triathlon, and volleyball. I believe stand-up paddleboard has just been added, as well as surfing. Surfing is kind of specialized to here in Florida, and one of our great partners, Ron Johns, will have a big to-do in our surfing competitions.
Cocoa Beach, right? That's the surfing capital of the U.S., maybe?
Absolutely. I was there last weekend myself.
Yeah, we did. My wife and I did a trip to Cocoa Beach, had a great time there. Really enjoyed. First time there, which is, I've been in Florida for a long time, and I don't know. Sometimes you just don't go somewhere because you don't know what it's going to be like, and then you're there, and it's like, wow, it's pretty good.
Absolutely.
Is breakdancing going to eventually be a special Olympic? I know they just added that to the regular Olympics.
Yeah, there's a lot of potential for new sports and exhibition events coming up. That would be awesome. I know for one thing that's really growing in the Special Olympics movement is esports. Right. Just huge. And we'll be featuring esports at the games. It'll be a demonstration sport, not necessarily similar to your other sports competitions, but I think we're just touching the tip of the iceberg as far as esports goes. And that could obviously lead to who knows other sports and opportunities. Yeah.
Let's talk about what the Special Olympics is and means. When it first started with Shriver, it was about inclusion, right? We wanted to have these people be included. And still today, the athletes they're not. I mean, they get a lot of accolades, right? And there's a lot of good stuff that they see and hear about. But because of who they are and what they're doing, there's still probably a lot of negativity towards it as well. And I assume that's part of what you guys aim to do is educate on the athletes and the people who don't really know who these people are and what is really so special about them.
Yeah, you hit the nail on the head when you talk about inclusion, right? That's what the whole mission is about. Special Olympics is really just a global movement to end discrimination against people with intellectual disabilities, ID. And we want to foster that acceptance of all people through the power of sport and programming and education and health and leadership. So yeah, it's a pretty special organization when you think of it like that. We really have done a good job over the years of kind of removing that stigma associated with those with ID, right? I mean, they are capable, they are competitive, they're fired up and ready to go. And I often joke and say, when I talk to people who are interested in attending the games, if you're a fan of sport, if you're a fan of just world-class athletes, that's what you're going to get with the Special Olympics USA Games. These are fantastic, fantastic athletes who just happen to be intellectually disabled.
But they're also physically disabled too, or is that just the intellectual that is what's the differential? Because they have the Paralympics that just happened along with the Olympics, and I can see why those are more related than a Special Olympics to the regular Olympics. But there are physical deficiencies for these athletes. It's not just mental, right?
So it's all intellectual disabilities. Anything physical is typically, to your point, through the Paralympics. Now, there may be instances, for example, one of the things about our games is that we're athlete driven. And when I say that, I mean, we have athletes sitting on our board of directors, as well as athletes on the game organizing committee who I get to work with on a daily basis. And one of my colleagues, Jackie, is a Special Olympics Florida athlete who does happen to be in a wheelchair. So she certainly not defined by her physical limitations. There are instances and situations where maybe there are physical limitations, but for the most part, it's about intellectual disabilities.
So maybe I might have said this wrong. I don't mean it's a physical limitation. It's just that their bodies are different than other athletes who don't have the mental issues, right?
Sure. Yeah, you could certainly say that, but then, I think about one of our Special Olympics Florida athletes, Chris Nikic. Chris has been featured on ESPN. He was on the ESPYs getting the Jimmy.
He's a marathoner guy?
Yeah. So he was the first person with intellectual disabilities to complete, I believe it was a triathlon or a Tough Mudder or one of those competition.
Yeah.
And, when you watch this guy train, it's like watching him. He's a first-class athlete. He just happens to have intellectual disabilities.
But there's levels of it, even at the Special Olympics, where you can tell, someone like him as opposed to some of the other athletes, and they're still very good. It's not easy to do that, and so they're good athletes. It's just there is a level. It's always hard to talk about this. You say, at least a few times here, you said I like to joke about this. And I saw the movie The Ringer, which I thought was a fantastic movie. And, in Something About Mary, there was a joke about, it's like, using what do you call them? Those little bastards. I don't know, whatever it is. There's some humor in it if you can understand that you're kind of not making fun of someone, but you're just kind of having a conversation to, I don't even know. It's very hard because everything's so PC. I correct myself now to not use the word retarded, which was, that's a big no-no, right? We don't want to use the word retarded. You're retarded. Medically speaking, they are mentally retarded, right? But we don't want to call them retarded, but that might just be describing what they're working with. So how do you battle that? Because it's a very common word for people to use. I don't like to use it. I hate when people use it. I tell them not to use it now. How do you deal with that?
it's even jarring just to hear you say it casually like that, right? Like it's one of those words that just isn't in the vernacular anymore, and we'll often refer to it as the R word, right?
Right.
Yeah, we live in a world that is politically correct. I certainly understand that, but there's also right and wrong, and referring to people in the correct manner and treating them with respect. So that is something that it's a constant ongoing education to the public on how to correctly terminalize these words, but also just I think years of perhaps ignorance and just not knowing, right? It's constant re-education. And for myself as well, like I said, like I came on board and didn't have that personal relationship with Special Olympics, but I learned very quickly, the ins and outs, the proper way to refer to people, how and why people might be offended at certain things. So yeah, it's a challenge, and it's ongoing.
It's a fine line between, like, there's a cancel culture in a PC world, and there's a fine line between someone being sensitive about something and someone with a legit gripe about how you treat them or what you say about them. But on the flip side, if I'm Jewish, and if you can use the word Jew and it can be really bad, or you can use the word Jew and it's just in context, it makes sense. So if these athletes, and some of them to some extent are mentally retarded, I hate to use whatever, if they're mentally R-word,
intellectually disabled,
right? But I'm saying, but isn't that still accurate? It's not accurate to say that. I know we shouldn't say it, but I'm saying from a technical standpoint, isn't it accurate to say that or no?
I don't think so. I almost liken it to, and I hate to say it like this because it kind of trivializes it, but it's like referring to a flight attendant as a stewardess, right? It's outdated. It's not right. Apropos anymore.
But the word, again, I don't want to. I'm just trying to. I want to educate people and to understand why they should be talking to so way. The word, retard, doesn't that just mean to slow down? It's not. It became a negative thing in the same way that people say a word and it became negative. So I get that. Look, we shouldn't be saying it at all. But I understand why there are people who just they don't understand to say, why is that a bad thing? Sure. It's one of those things. Look, people calling each other the N-word.
Yeah.
It's never going to go away. But we have to try and educate people as to why it should go away. And then other people say, well, if I'm one of those people, it's like a comedian. I can make fun of anyone as long as I'm part of that group. But not really. It doesn't really apply to here. Do you have what are the levels of the ID? Because there's got to be some type of advantage on in a competition ways if there's different levels of. Are they competing at the same level? Do you differentiate on like what the minimum requirements of the ID is?
So not necessarily based on their level of intellectual disability, but rather a lot of times it's their skill level or age or size. Right. So, you think about certain sports, there are different divisions and whatnot.
Well, that's like wrestling, right? I mean, if you're playing basketball, you're playing basketball. No one else is going to say you're going to be here because you're tall or short or.
No. Yeah, of course. Nothing like that. But, one, I think misconception with Special Olympics is most people think it's just kids. It's just children, but it's adults as well. And we're going to be having, I believe, 8-year-old or 79-year-old competing in the USA Games.
First time?
I'm sorry?
Is it their first time?
I don't know. I'm not positive, but it's one of those things. You obviously want to pair up people who are alike in the sense of their skill level, their age group, their size. You don't want one power lifter who, Arnold Schwarzenegger huge, and then the other guy be a little bit smaller. It's just leveling that balance.
That just who's out there, because in a regular Olympics, which it's just the best people get to make it. Is that not how it works?
No, so it's a little bit unique. Each state delegation gets to select who they want to attend.
Okay.
And yes, we're all about competition. When you talk to our athletes, they'll tell you they want to win, they hate to lose, things of that nature. But there's also a very big and strong component of family and camaraderie in the Special Olympics world. So I remember speaking specifically to a parent of a Special Olympics Florida athlete who had competed in Seattle in 2018 and didn't want to compete in 2022. And I thought that was so interesting. And I asked why, and she said, well, she felt like others should have that experience. Others should have the opportunity to compete on a national scale like that. So you see a lot of that.
Yeah. And I want to get to that, the compassion and the joy and just the type of people, and not to stereotype, because there's probably terrible people of all of them. But I find them to be, the people that I've met and interacted with ID are some of the nicest, happiest. Like, they don't even understand the hand that they were dealt relative to you and me, and it doesn't matter. And so they do stuff like that. But from the flip side, if I was an athlete, what would be a reason why I couldn't participate in the 2022 games? Because you're saying, is it, if I want to, I'll be able to go, or no?
No. So the state delegations select all of the athletes that'll actually attend, and they can do that in a number of different ways. It might be looking at who has gone to games in the past and who hasn't. It might be an actual competition and based on athletic merit. Each state, it kind of runs it differently.
Doesn't that take away the competitive, a little bit on the competitive side, and then a little bit on the inclusion side, and then be more of like, I don't want to say politics, but cliquish or, popularity, any of those, which in any other normal Olympic Games wouldn't be a factor. Is there some concern about that or no?
Not that I've been privy to, like I said, and it's really blown me away in my short time in getting to be a part of the organization, is how much one Special Olympics family really truly cares and looks out for their fellow Special Olympics family. It really is quite communal. So it's not really looked at like political or choosing favorites or sides. Now, to your point, are the best athletes always selected? Perhaps not. But one thing I can tell you about every Special Olympics athlete is that they have the passion, drive, determination, and training to get the job done and put on a world-class event.
And they might have a better shot of getting to the next one because while the competition is fierce, right? It's just not going to be in the same way as the Olympics. Say, look, this might be their last chance to participate. You think there's probably a good chance that they'll be able to participate in another one in the future, but you never know. So, it's always like anything in life. We got to live in the moment and really embrace what's going on now and, treat it like we might never get back. I don't know. I think I have to have a feeling like that. Do you have a sense of the breakdown between men and women athletes?
I don't, off the top of my head. I don't. That's a great question, though. I'll have to do some research there.
Yeah, I'm assuming there's more men. I don't know why I say that. I just feel like there probably is, but maybe it's different in the Special Olympics world. How about states? Will all states be represented in Orlando next year?
Yeah, so we have 67 different delegations being represented at the games. That includes like I said, the 52 state programs, each and every one of them. And again, 52 because we have Washington, D.C., and then we split up California. But for the first time ever, we're also including the Caribbean delegations.
Okay. So
that'll be really exciting to be able to welcome, our athletes from Haiti and the Dominican Republic and everything down there. It's really exciting. But yeah, every delegation will be represented.
How many athletes that compete in the U.S. games also compete on the World Games? Is there a lot of like doubling up, or do they aim to compete in that, or it's just we're going to do the USA? And
yeah, it's funny you bring that up. I in my experience in talking with families and athletes, they really don't look at like these World Games or USA Games as like the definitive be all end all. Like we need to get there. Like, if you're a gymnast growing up, your goal is to get to the Olympics. In this case, it's a little bit different, right? It's so much more than just the athletic competition, right? It's that camaraderie and the friendship component. So to your question, I don't think there are a lot who have competed in World Games as well as USA Games. I'm sure there's certainly been occurrences and instances, but nothing glaring. Like I said, when an athlete has the opportunity to attend one of these games, they want their fellow athletes to be able to appreciate that down the road.
Yeah. I mean, look, if you're an Olympian, and this is what they are, they're Olympians, there's a special feeling of accomplishment. There's a special feeling of pride. If you win in the Olympics, if you're the best in your nation, there's another thing. But to be able to stand on a podium and the national anthem's playing above other countries, I got to feel, I don't know, I've never been there, but I know how I feel when I'm watching it. I can only imagine as an athlete, they might probably have the same feeling like that.
There's definitely state pride. Definitely state pride. I had the opportunity to speak with a Special Olympics Florida athlete, and they're friends with the Special Olympics Georgia athlete, and we're saying we want to beat them. We want to beat them just because they're our rivals to the north. So it's pretty cool in that regard.
Is there? I mentioned The Ringer, which is a great movie. It's just a great movie. It happens to deal with the Special Olympics, Johnny Knoxville, and I won't spoil it. But if anyone hasn't seen it, I definitely recommend it. It's a pretty good appreciation for the Special Olympic athlete and what the whole competition means to them. Is there another movie or a documentary that you would recommend people watch? I know I saw something on the origins of it with the Shrivers. I'm failing to remember what the name of it was.
Yeah, I nothing jumps out in my mind, but one thing that I really made it a point to do, not only when I started, but also recently in the past couple months, all of us can go on YouTube or whatnot. And I would implore your listeners to take a look at Eunice Kennedy Shriver. Just Google Eunice Kennedy Shriver and Special Olympics, and the sheer amount of videos and educational pieces that come up on the movement, on her specifically. Like what an amazing, phenomenal woman she was. And her impact and legacy is still felt to this day. And she passed a number of years ago.
It's an incredible family. Just if you start thinking about them and what they've done and what they're continuing to do, really it's an incredible, one of the great families in of the U.S. And they're not American, right? They weren't born in the U.S.
I think some of them were. Former President Kennedy was born in Massachusetts, but obviously he was president.
I feel like there was somewhere, I don't know, maybe I'm just thinking of Schwarzenegger and all that.
That could be it.
We talk about The Ringer. I want to bring this up just because I'm curious. Is there any type of cheating or fraud that you guys that has been around in this? Because there's always that. Anytime you have competition, there's always that type of thing. Because there's a lot on the line, even as an athlete. These athletes are getting endorsements. These athletes are, getting work and paid based on their performance. Has there been anything, probably not to the level of the real Olympics, but has there been anything like that?
Nothing that I've been made aware of. I certainly wouldn't be surprised. I mean, I think that's sometimes the nature of sport, right? We're all looking for that competitive advantage, gamesmanship. But again, and I hate to kind of harken back on what I've said, but there's just such a, honesty about the movement. There's such a communal sense in wanting to see, you want to beat your competitor, but you also want to see them do well. And that's one thing that was made abundantly clear to me from the time I started. And you see it, right? So I couldn't answer that question directly. I'm sure there's probably been instances in the past of people trying something, right? But for the most part, everybody is just looking out for one another, which is really, really special.
And this is you start talking about, how long the planning is and what it involves. The whole operation, Special Olympics, is a huge, huge deal that needs a lot of help from a lot of people, including money and time. It's all volunteers, right? Not you saying at the games.
Yeah, no, that's a great point. So we have about 25 people on our games organizing committee. We all work out of Orlando here. But in addition to that, in order to pull off a successful games, we will be looking for over 10,000 volunteers. It is just a massive endeavor that we will need a lot of help in executing. So yeah, to your point, relatively speaking, 25 full-time employees versus up to 10,000 volunteers.
Yeah. And then you actually, there's a lot more involved in this other than just the games next June. There's other events that lead up to it, fundraising. So tell us a little bit about that. What's available. Really want to let you tell people how can you get involved, because I reached out for a few reasons, but one of the reasons I would like to personally be involved in the games next year. I would love to get Time Machine to get involved. I think there's some good ways that we can help also. But I want you to sort of, what are the opportunities that people have to get involved, even if they can't, let's say they can't be on site, next June.
Yeah, no, absolutely. There's a plethora of ways to get involved and be a part of the USA Games. That can be through the generosity and support of a partnership. And again, I stress partnership. I will always say partnership. Very rarely will you hear me say sponsorship, because it is truly a collaboration. And we couldn't put on the games without our partners. Like I said, everything is completely complimentary for the athletes, from their flight, their lodging, their food, their health exams, everything. So all of the dollars generated through a partnership go right to our athletes. In addition to that, for those smaller companies or higher net worth individuals or people or companies who want to get involved but maybe not ready to make the larger financial commitment, we have what's called our 2022 club, which is a smaller donation club that comes along with a number of benefits, a reception dinner, things of that nature. But most importantly, all those monies, again, go directly to the athletes of Special Olympics. And then from there, you have your ways to actually physically be on site, right? So whether that's volunteering, as we had mentioned, I also bring up a program that I oversee called Fans in the Stands. Fans in the Stands is a spectator program in which we encourage groups of 10 or more to come out to a sporting event, cheer on the athletes, be loud, make noise. We'll have cheer cards and pom-poms. But one thing in talking to a Special Olympics athlete that really stuck out for me is the difference it makes for them to have a crowd, right? And that's one of the things that is really integral to us is removing that stigma of Special Olympics. At the end of the day, like I said before, these are just world-class athletes. If you're a football fan and you want to watch flag football, you're going to be entertained and enjoy watching flag football. It just so happens to be that they are Special Olympics athletes. Yeah. So those are the big direct ways to get involved: volunteering, Fans in the Stands, partnerships. But it's a massive undertaking, and we need and could appreciate the support of those looking to volunteer.
Yeah. Well, that's, you bring up a point that I want to get to here is, if the games were to be held next month, is COVID an issue?
If the games were held next month,
yeah.
Probably. Yeah, I'd say so. Again, I harken back to what I said when I started the week we shut the country down. We obviously know what's going on in the world, right? We follow all CDC guidelines and things of that nature. We are moving forward and proceeding as though we will have a full games. I think it's been really encouraging to see full stadiums in professional sports again, college sports. So that's really encouraging. Obviously, we just went through a little bit of a spike here in the wild, wild west of Florida, but we're operating as though it won't be an issue, but certainly cognizant of the fact that it could be, and there will be measures in place. They haven't been finalized, but there's certainly been discussions amongst the leadership team.
Well, I kind of asked that because just the way you mentioned, like if you had to do Olympics the way that they just did Olympics with no fans in the stands, do you do it? I mean, I guess so, you have to do it, but how big of a difference is that going to be?
Yeah, absolutely. And that's something that I shudder to even think about, because as integral and huge as the athletes are to the competition, their family and friends are just as important. And, we anticipate upwards of 5,000 to 9,000 of our attendees being family and friends, right? So it'd be tough. It'd be tough for us not to do that. But again, we're kind of at this point operating as if we're going to have a full event.
Is there any political aspects of this? Are you tied? You guys are a private organization, right? So you're not like beholden to the state and anything that they don't make any decisions on it, but you're just based on what the CDC says and state and federal guidelines. Is that accurate?
Yeah. So we follow, obviously CDC and state guidelines. We are not affiliated with any political party or company or anything like that. Now, that's obviously not to say that there aren't some kind of ties, right? Like, so on our board of directors is Governor DeSantis. It's not about partisan Republican Democrat. It's the fact that he's the governor of Florida. One of our celebrity games ambassadors is Chelsea Clinton. So, while there are people who have connections to the political world, we're certainly not a political organization.
Are those two in the same room together?
Probably not.
I was going to say,
yeah,
that could be the next athletic event. Put those two in a room together.
But what's really cool about that? So we, when we brought on Chelsea Clinton as an ambassador, we started thinking about this. Like, how cool would it be to have somebody comparable to her from the other side, right? And show in this divided world country that we live in, here is how we could come together through the power of Special Olympics and inclusion. It
sounds good. It sounds like a stretch to me, but I get what you're saying. I think Chelsea Clinton, and I don't hold back any impression of who I align with. I think Chelsea Clinton is a good ambassador for anything. She's so well spoken. She just seems like a great person wanting to help people, and I think she would be a force in that world, whether her father was president or not. So it's good to see that she's an ambassador
absolutely
for the games.
Yeah, and our celebrity games ambassadors are an integral part of what we're doing, right? It's been really special to see the eagerness and excitement in some of the celebrities to get involved. And again, we wanted to take what had been done in the past and just build upon it. And that's why it was so important when we started reaching out to potential ambassadors to secure people like Matthew McConaughey, Lin-Manuel Miranda, Mark Cuban, Ellen DeGeneres, Jimmy Kimmel, Tyra Banks, Whoopi Goldberg, Tiffany Haddish. I mean, the list is on and on. I hate to name drop like that, but really just so proud of the celebrity ambassador program we built. And really, at the end of the day, it's just going to bring more awareness to what we're doing, to the games, to the athletes, and to the movement of inclusion.
Why would someone not be a celebrity? I'm sure you've gotten no's before. Why are you getting what is the no? You get a no. Why is it?
Yeah. So when I started,
we're not available June 5th to 12th, but you're 2 years out. The odds on that happening are not very good.
Yeah. I'll be honest with you. It's funny. Some of the responses you get sometimes, and you could tell just right away, that might be a little BS, right? But the majority of people who turn it down, a lot of it was the unknown of COVID and just not knowing where they might be in June of 2022. A lot of times with actors and actresses, from what I've learned in working with the publicists and agents, is that they like to keep certain times open because they don't know what projects might come up.
Right.
So a lot of it is that. With athletes, sometimes it's about season, right?
Yeah.
So one of our celebrity games ambassadors is Austin Matthews of the Toronto Maple Leafs. I could easily see it being tough for him to be in attendance at the games if the Leafs are going far in the Stanley Cup playoffs.
He could still be involved without being there.
Oh yeah. The main support that we asked for from our celebrity ambassadors is support on social media. You think about somebody like a Mark Cuban or Ellen DeGeneres, they just tweet about Special Olympics USA Games, and all of a sudden it's in front of 70 million people. So that's the real huge impact that our ambassadors are making. And there will be certain ones who come and attend in person to hand out medals or walk athletes out at opening ceremony. opening ceremony in and of itself, we're going to have some headline talent performing. So it's exciting, and it's been really exciting to see the response from celebrities to want to get involved.
Right. So outside of the opening ceremonies and the events, the games, the competitions, let's say I'm a fan, I'm an attendee, I'm a spectator. I come to Orlando June 5th to June 12th next year. What else can I expect? Are there going to be concerts? Are there going to be other events, golfing outings? What else can I expect while I'm in Orlando with regard to the games?
Yeah, absolutely. So really the lead up to the game starts 2 weeks before the games even starts with an event called the Law Enforcement Torch Run. Really, really special event that occurs during each Special Olympics games, whether that's regional, USA, or World Games. And essentially what happens is law enforcement will light the flame of hope and march it around for a week throughout a state or country, or a specific state, and then lead right into opening ceremony where they light the big cauldron to kick the games off.
So now, very similar to the other, because the Olympics does that also, don't they?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. We just happen to have law enforcement support in that, and they use it as a great fundraiser. They've been so phenomenal and kind to us. But again, we wanted to do things bigger, badder, better. We're going to be doing the first ever multi-state torch run. It'll be starting in Chicago. We'll head over to Connecticut for some events at ESPN and World Wrestling Entertainment, down to New York City for some events, and then down through the major media markets for a week. And then we'll spend another week just going around Florida and creating even more media moments. So that's first and foremost a great way for people to get involved, to see what's going on, is first and foremost our law enforcement torch run. From there, throughout the week, we're going to have all kinds of things outside of just the sports competitions. Family night at the Disney parks is something that's been really exciting to see the response. A lot of times, it could be these athletes and their families' first times coming to Orlando, first time coming to Disney World. So being able to provide that. And then there'll be closing ceremony. There'll be performances and whatnot, opening ceremony with performances. And throughout the week, we have an area called our fan zone, which is a really, really cool area, interactive area for spectators, family, friends to come and interact with our partners, interact with potential games ambassadors, really just activate. It's fun. It's exciting.
Yeah. So when does it start to get real? Like this is we're almost there. When does that? I know you guys start planning right from the start. So I'm not trying to say when do you start working. I'm just trying to say when do you get that feeling that, man, it's coming. It's right here. Is it right when that torch starts? Is it as you have some other events that maybe start beginning of next year?
Yeah. No, that's a great question and something that I actually thought about recently. So back in June 5th of this past year, we celebrated 1 year out to the games. Right. And that was probably the first time where it was like, wow, this is real. Like, this is actually going to, like, we had appearances on the Ellen Show, appearances on Good Morning America, a number of different media activations throughout the week. And that was probably the first time where I was like, wow, this is unbelievable. But I even said to my colleague the other day, I said, each day it amazes me the size, like coming to realize the size and scope of what we're doing and the event that we're going to put on. And I can't wait for one of those days of the games to sit there and just take a second to take it all in and look around and be like, wow, we did this. We put this event together. But, I say that back in June was the first time where things really started to become real. I would imagine that it'll become even more so come the new year, come January, when we really start kicking in, when we're 6 months out to the games, 3 months out to the games, and then, right at the precipice of the games. I'm sure that's the real moment where I'll be like, well, I'll kiss my wife and daughters goodbye for a week and go work the games.
Yeah. And they'll come to the games to watch some of it anyway, right?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
What's going to happen? I hate to ask about, but what's going to happen afterwards? I mean, are there a lot of people who kind of stay within the special games environment in some form or fashion as it moves somewhere? Obviously, you don't want to just pick up your family and move to a different state just because, but do a lot of people stay involved with it afterwards and what have you learned and about yourself and kind of where you might want to go afterwards? I know it's early, but it's still look, right now you got your head in the sand and you're doing a year, 9 months is nothing. It'll be here before you know it. And now all of a sudden we're done. And now we got to figure out, okay, what's next?
Yeah, no, that's a great point. And I would first start off by saying a good amount of people who get involved with the Special Olympics movement wind up staying with it because they just become passionate. I think specifically of my colleague, Cheryl Perez, who is also a director of partnerships. She started with Special Olympics New Jersey years and years ago and just fell in love with the organization and what our overall movement is about. And here she is still with the games years later.
I grew up in New Jersey. I'm a Jersey boy.
I'm a Long Island guy. I get it. Let's go Mets. But yeah, for me personally, like I said, I worked in pro sports for years. I worked in the NHL for 4 years, Major League Soccer, the Alliance of American Football. So there is part of me that is really anxious to get back into the pro sports world, especially as we start to see full arenas and stadiums again.
Yeah.
On the other hand, I've really fallen in love with working for a nonprofit and kind of having that fulfillment at the end of the day to know that you made a difference in people's lives, even on a smaller scale. So there's certainly the option to stay with Special Olympics, maybe go and transition to Special Olympics Florida, or even up to Washington, D.C. with Special Olympics International. You say it's so far out, and I kind of have that mindset, but I probably should have already had the ball in motion.
No,
but
I think it's good to go all in on what you're at, because you have good experience. The experience that you're getting here, I don't foresee you having a tough time landing into a nice role for yourself. But you want to do it in what makes sense, not just take a job to take a job. And you have to focus on the task at hand. It's a difficult thing. You're on a contract. That's basically what you're on a contract.
Yeah. But
you're kind of like, all right, well, I need to kind of start thinking about it as the contract ends. But as the contract ends is when you're like, neck deep in all this stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm in a situation, right? Like I have a young family. I have one almost 4-year-old daughter and one on the way now. So it's important for me to, whatever that next step is, like to put roots down, right? And find that stability. And I don't take that lightly. One thing I do want to mention, and I'd be remiss if I didn't, is how supportive our leadership team is to us as employees in regards to finding that next opportunity. So from day one, my boss, Amy Wise, and our president and CEO, Joe Zalek, sat me down and were like, pretty consistently, do you have an idea of the direction you want to go? Are there introductions that we can make? Are there, titles or introductions or whatever it might be that we can help foster that next thing? And that's something that happens very regularly. And it's, I hate to be so cheesy, but it's true. Like to have the support of your team, to that they look at you, beyond just employees, but as human beings and as people, it's pretty special.
You have to just think it has to be that way, right? You're dealing with the Special Olympics. How can you have compassion and deal with these athletes and not have the compassion and be the type of people? Because I would say not everyone can be involved in the Special Olympics. There's people who just can't be around others who aren't like them, who have a disability, who have special needs, who are different, however you want to say it. I get that way sometimes when I see certain people, handicapped, and I just get a feeling of just feeling very badly for them. And it's normal to feel that way. And some people can't. Look, I couldn't be around sick people when my great grandma was in a nursing home. When my grandma was in a nursing home, I couldn't be around people like that. When it was my grandma, I could, because I was connected to her and I would do anything for her and be around her. But when it's other people like that, some people just can't be around that. So I guess that was the long way of saying, if you're going to be involved in the Special Olympics, you probably have to be closer to a good person than not a good person. I know that's but it seems like a simple thing to say, but it's got to be accurate in some sense.
Yeah, no, you're 100% right. I mean, I've found that everybody that I work with has a big heart, but also to your point, when I talk about volunteering with certain companies, I always stress the point that we'll create customized volunteer opportunities based on your skill set or your desire. Because at the end of the day, I understand and I get it. Like, not everybody is comfortable working besides those with intellectual disabilities. I understand that. Some people are much more comfortable, some people are not. But we want everybody to feel included in the movement regardless. So we'll find a unique opportunity that best suits their skill set.
Yeah. And I mentioned it before. I mean, almost all of the individuals, these aren't even athletes, these are just people who have intellectual disability, they're happier than almost everyone I know. And it's kind of like maybe they don't know, maybe they can't grasp exactly the situation that they were dealt or what they're in, but there's no reason why they can't have a great life, and do the things that we get married, have a job, participate in athletics, all of that stuff. There's
100%.
literally zero reason why they can't integrate in society. Now, do some of them need supervision? Of course, right? Some people can't. I know people who don't have intellectual disability who aren't capable of living on their own and functioning without help, and that's fine. But it's, I think it's a big misunderstanding about the people who are involved in this. And it's tough. It's I don't know it'll ever go away. I don't know that people ever stop, using the words that they shouldn't use. But I think it's good to be educated. Because even I wasn't ever walking around calling people the R word, but you do use it. Even if I say, "Oh, that's gay," right? I don't use that anymore. Right. It's a big deal. Me amongst my friends, we could call it, and there's things you can say internally, but it's just education is a huge thing with any movement, with any nonprofit, with any charity, which this is a charity, a foundation, philanthropy, all of that. And education has to be at the top of it.
100%. I would certainly echo your thoughts there. But one thing I would say and challenge people is that it starts with a desire to want to be educated, I think, because you can't educate the unwilling, right? And the ignorant. So I think it takes a certain level of wanting to understand the nuances and intricacies behind it.
Is there a famous athlete in the history of? I know we talked about and I feel terrible. I don't remember his name, but the marathon runner.
Oh yeah, Chris Nikic. Yeah.
Is there someone else who's like a famous athlete?
I would say Chris is the most famous today, modern day. I know there have been athletes in the past who have gone on to be recognized, right? I mean, even somebody on Special Olympics executive leadership team. She was a athlete for years and is now Loretta Claiborne. She is not, I forget her exact title, but she's on the executive team of Special Olympics International. So she made that transition, and that was probably a lot due to her being so groundbreaking, being a woman of color with intellectual disabilities and an athlete. But as far as modern day goes, I mean, Chris Nikic is probably the most famous athlete we have right now, and he'll actually be competing at the USA Games. But it was pretty cool to watch the ESPYs a little while back and see him featured there. That's pretty awesome.
Yeah. What sport would you play if you could participate in the Olympic Games?
Yeah, powerlifting probably.
Powerlifting?
Yeah. I'm a bodybuilder, weightlifter. So yeah, something like that. Maybe I would, if you would ask me years ago, I would say basketball, but I don't think my ankles can hold up to that anymore with these athletes.
I usually say some of these other things, like even when, they're coming up with some really cool stuff. I think cornhole is going to be an Olympic game. It's a skill. Even beer pong or whatever you want.
Yeah.
These are all very different. If you can be the best, like if you see the cornhole competition they have on ESPN, we kind of joke around about them, like ESPN the Ocho and whatever it is. But man, those guys are, because I play that game, and I'm not great. I'm okay. My friend's really good, and then these guys go up and they throw all four of them in the hole. And I'm like, what? Like darts and whatever. It's incredible. And esports is a thing too. Like, we used to think how great we were at video games, and now these people are like, man, they would crush me.
Yeah, oh, absolutely. Absolutely. I still am trying to understand, and this is where, my age might show through a little bit, the okay boomer moment, but I still am trying to figure out the appeal to watching other people play video games.
Yeah.
But it's huge, right? And to your point, everybody knows basketball, softball, volleyball, soccer, whatever, but it's the sports like bocce or stand-up paddle that I'm really intrigued to see, because I've never been exposed to those sports. I'm excited to see the level of play and competition amongst the athletes for those.
Yeah. Well, I'm looking for. I mean, I'm looking for. I know I talked to you before, and we'll have to have another conversation. But I plan to get involved personally, and hopefully, Ticket Time Machine. I think I have a lot to offer personally and with the company. So I'm looking forward to finally being able to be a part of the Special Olympics and help where I can. What's the best way for someone who's just a regular Joe, who doesn't have money to sponsor or partner, to volunteer? Where can they go? Is it the website that I have down here, 2022 Special Olympics USA Games.org?
Yeah, and you can even go further than that and go /get-involved. And that'll give you a full list of all the ways in which you can support the athletes of Special Olympics and get involved with the largest humanitarian event in the history of the state of Florida.
It's so 2022 Special Olympics USA Games.
Yep. .org.
.org/get involved. Yeah.
And there's a hyphen between get and involved.
Ah. You're making it difficult here, Adam.
No, I know. That's story of my life. Now you sound like my parents.
Keep this up until if anyone wants to go. But we'll push this stuff. I see you got Jersey Mike's on your shirt. They're
yeah. Jersey Mike stepped up. They are our presenting sponsor of the games. What an amazing partnership we founded with Jersey Mike's. They are supporting the games from a huge standpoint. They're our top partner. In addition to that, obviously our host partner, Disney. And then you look at some of our other partners like Bank of America, Coca-Cola, World Wrestling Entertainment, Ron John's Surf Shop, Publix supermarkets. I mean, I often joke and say it's like a slice of Americana when you look at the list of our partners.
Yeah. Is there a partner that you brought in that you're most proud of?
The one that when I first started and was really excited to partner with was WWE. As a lifelong wrestling nerd, it's just cool to be associated with them. But as I've gotten to know the team over there, I really get to see the heart that they all have. And I work specifically with the WWE community team, a whole department dedicated strictly to serving the community and the impact that they have. I'm sorry.
Is that Stephanie's department?
Stephanie has a big to do with that. Yeah. And
I thought I was going to leave as we talk here. Who's your favorite wrestler?
Favorite wrestler is probably Bret the Hitman Hart. The best there is, the best there was, the best there ever will be.
You know who this is?
Oh, you didn't know? I know it. Wow.
This guy's my favorite wrestler of all time.
Billy Gunn, huh?
Billy Gunn. That's
those Beanie Babies. That's old right there. We're taking it back to the 90s.
Yeah, I'm old.
Me too. I get it.
I'm the boomer you're talking about.
Yeah.
We'll let you out of here on this. Same question we ask everyone. You can spend a day with anyone in the world. They have to be alive. You can't be related to them. Who's it going to be? And what do you want to do? We've made outreach. We've actually made outreach to Ellen for one of our guests. I don't know if you can talk, if we can leverage the people that you know who know. A special woman who's got metastatic breast cancer who joined on our show. She's been alive for like 6 years when everyone told her she was only going to be alive for 2. And she would love to meet Ellen, or at least be on our show or video chat with her or something. I've made outreach, but I don't know if you can make it happen or know someone who can make it happen. It would be great to help. But we're going to make it. We're going to do outreach for all of our guests. So whoever you pick is going to be someone that we're going to try and make happen. Who is it going to be? And
it's funny when you think about this. It's hard not to say Dwayne Johnson.
Yeah.
He's just so inspiring, and obviously, like I said, I'm a fitness enthusiast and bodybuilding and things like that, and just seeing the determination, motivation, perseverance, dedication that he has. I mean, the guy puts puts boots to backsides and is nonstop.
And what would you do with Dwayne?
I'd like to train with him.
Yeah,
I've seen some of the pictures of his Iron Paradise gym in his house, and yeah, I'd love that. That'd be awesome.
It's incredible how good of an actor he is. I mean, he is a really good actor, and you knew it when he was The Rock. He was like funny. He had his shtick, but man, Walking Tall and CIA, and he can do it all. He can be funny. He can be serious.
I wouldn't be surprised. I wouldn't be surprised if he runs for president sometime in the coming years.
I mean, look, I don't know how good a president he would be, but he's definitely well liked.
Absolutely.
So we're gonna put The Rock on the list for you, and we'll do some outreach. We might know some people. My wife went to University of Miami. We know people who played football there, so we don't. I'm a Gator. You're a Gator too, aren't you?
I am a Gator. Yeah, class of 07.
We're gonna have to cut out that clip where you just did whatever you did. I don't know.
Yeah, you know what? But I grew up in South Florida, right? Like, so I moved from New York to South Florida, and when you move from New York, college sports isn't important, right? Like, there's pro teams too in every sport. So I was told very fast, pick a team, pick a college, and root for them. So I became a Canes fan. I just happened to go to the University of Florida.
Well, you're better to go to University of Miami and be a Gator fan than go to the University of Florida and be a Canes fan. Yeah. That's for another conversation. Yeah. I really enjoyed talking and learning about the Special Olympics. I think it's important for people to understand who and why, and then how they can get involved, because it takes a village, as they say. You guys have a lot of support, tremendous support, financially, and from people's time, and from people who can make a difference. But also, it's the people who are just everyday people who make these events happen. It doesn't happen without everyday volunteers. Yeah. Because at the end of the day, Matthew McConaughey is not going to sit and try and help you to your seat, right?
Sure. No, absolutely. You hit the nail on the head. And I'm very thankful to you for allowing me the platform to talk about the games and Special Olympics movement, and really excited. We're 8 months out.
We'll be here before you know it. Check out 2022 Special Olympics, USAGames.org. Add the /get-involved if you want to volunteer. But let's give these athletes the same support that we would give any other athletes that are participating in the Olympics. I know the Paralympics games don't get as much. I mean, they kind of did a little bit elevated this year. They got some TV time. You guys get some TV time too, don't you?
Yeah. So our opening ceremony is broadcast on ABC, and then throughout the week of the games will be featured on ESPN.
Great. I mean, you're aligned with the right people in Disney. It's going to be just a massive event, June 5th to the 12th in Orlando. I plan on being there for as much of it as I can and being involved as much as I can. That's for another conversation, but appreciate your time. We have check out the Wolff Den next week. We got some really great guests, including someone as a Florida alum that you might be interested in listening to. But until then, no show tomorrow. Enjoy the weekend. Help get involved. Be good. Be safe. Have fun. And we'll see everybody Monday.
Thanks so much, Matt.
Thanks, Adam.